Saturday, kids. What time is that?
You can argue whether Star Trek's original episode, City on the Edge of Forever, is the very best Star Trek episode, but I don't think you can argue that it's one of the best episodes, and I agree with that. It's definitely one of the best episodes, and I've always wanted to explore the differences between the aired episode that we've all seen as compared to the original story written by the writer Harlan Ellison. I know it's it's almost like 60 years later now that we've already seen this episode, so it's like I'm not breaking any new ground, I don't think, but I always wanted to go back and look. For many years I never even knew that there was an original story by Harlan Ellison that got there were some significant changes, and I know there was a conflict going on between Harlan Ellison and Gene Roddenberry and other people associated with Star Trek. I don't have any special insight into that. I'm sure there's a lot of insiders who have written about that. I don't have any kind of insight into what the conflict was and what went back and forth between what the changes that were made. I did read that he was not very happy with the changes that were made, but Gene Roddenberry and people working with Star Trek show did have the oversight of it, so they had and they owned the characters, so they had the right to make those changes. So whether you agree with that or not, that they had the right to do that. So I a few years back I went and looked. There was this. I can show you this. There was this 5-issue limited series, or 5-issue series published by IDW Comics, based on Harlan Ellison's original teleplay. And in the front here, it is. Let me see. I just want to say original teleplay by Harlan. Adaptation by Scott Tipton and David Tipton, art by J.K. Woodward. And at the beginning of here, there is an introduction by Harlan Ellison, which shows you that he did endorse this. So it looks like I'm going by this comic book adaptation as if that's what the one he originally wrote, and looking at the differences between this and the episode that has become obviously a classic. And right away, the first major thing, or maybe even the major thing overall, that I saw was in the difference. The crew member that actually goes back through the Guardian of Forever and changes Earth's history, that prompts Kirk and Spock to have to go back after them to restore Earth's history, is completely different. And so in Ellison's version, he created a new character called Beckwith, who's a crew member on the Enterprise, and he is he's dealing in an illicit drug, a very highly illegal drug. It's like the way Ellison writes it, these gems, which you consume a gem and then you get these hallucinatory, these typical kind of like drug-induced hallucinations and things like that, and highly addictive. As a matter of fact, the way he describes it is that you just use it once and you're completely addicted, which is why they're so highly illegal. And this crew member Beckwith is getting rich off of that. He's manipulating another crew member, Lieutenant Lebec, I believe, and kind of like owns him. Like he just does whatever he bids in terms of giving him. He's one of the bridge people, one of the bridge officers, so he's able to get like inside information on what planets they're going to go to and what missions are going to do, and he just kind of just controls them and manipulates them, does whatever he wants, because this crew member is addicted to this drug, and kind of just is at Beckwith's beck and call and everything. So then Lebec is like after a near disaster, they're orbiting a planet, the Enterprise orbiting a planet, near disaster at the Navigation Council. He kind of just like has enough, because he goes on his duty shift and is obviously like affected by the drugs, and that's it. He's had enough. He goes back to Beckwith. He's like, I don't care what they do to me. I'm going to turn you in. I'm going to turn myself in. I'm going to tell whatever's going on. I'm going to tell Kirk what's going on, and then whatever happens. And of course, Beckwith can't have that. He attacks him, kills him. But then he's discovered. He has to run to the transporter, locks himself in the transporter, and transports down to the planet that they're orbiting. Kirk and Spock go after him, along with, and this is another kind of interesting difference that I've seen, is that Yeoman Janice Rand plays a very active role in Ellison's version. She was not in the episode, and in the small amount of episodes that she was in Star Trek, she wasn't more than just like kind of like eye candy. She doesn't really do that much. And in this story by Ellison, she actually plays a very active role. Like Kirk relies on her to, like, he orders her to get through the transporter door to get to Beckwith because he locked himself in it, and she picks up this phaser rifle and starts hitting on the door, and it's like, wow, that's like it's like crazy. She kind of, the way she's portrayed, Janice Rand, in Ellison's story, Ellison's version of this episode, is that she's kind of like acts like a security chief. Even though they don't actually say she's a security chief, she does act like a security chief because Kirk is relying on her for that. So they finally get through the transporter, and they realize they have to go down to the planet to get back with Kirk, Spock, Janice Rand, and I believe it's 3 or 4 other security go down there, and they come upon these structures, these buildings up high on the mountain, and that's at that moment they're like, it's an incredible scene, and there's like, how could the city be up on top on this edge? And Kirk even makes the comment, it's like a city on the edge of forever, which is where the title comes from. I don't actually remember the Star Trek episode saying the title City on the Edge of Forever, but that's where it comes from, where he sees that up there, and they go on up. And because the Beckwith's tracks do lead there, they go on up and they meet the Guardians of Forever. I say Guardians of Forever because in Ellison's version, there are actual more than one. I believe there's 5 or 6 Guardians of Forever. They're humanoid. They're very, very different than what human beings look like, but they're humanoid and they talk and everything. And then that's another major difference, is that there's Guardians of Forever, and then there's the actual device machine that actually takes you, or you can see the past and through different timelines and everything. So getting back to the actual aired episode, of course, a lot of you, I don't think I'm giving spoilers at this point. The episode's been around for almost 60 years now. It's actually, here's the major difference. It's actually McCoy, who is not in Ellison's story, but it's actually McCoy is a crew member who actually beams down and goes through the Guardian of Forever and changes Earth's history. How that happens is they're running into some turbulence as they're orbiting the planet. There's a malfunction in the circuits. Sulu gets injured, and McCoy gets called up to the bridge. And while the ship goes through another more turbulence, McCoy accidentally injects himself with a high dose of this potent drug. I believe they call it cortisone. And the result is it affects him, is that he's like, is highly paranoid. Like, he looks around and he thinks everybody's after him. He's very paranoid and hallucinations, and he feels like he has to get away from everybody. He runs through evades security, runs to the transporter and transports down. And then as per the both versions, Kirk and Spock go down after him, except in the aired episode, I believe they also have Scotty and Uhura along with security personnel also go down there. And then they meet the Guardian of Forever, because in the aired episode, it's actually just the actual machine or device that you could see through the different timelines in the past is actually also speaking to him. So there's no separate Guardian of Forever. So that's a big difference between the two. So getting back to Ellison's version, Beckwith is in hiding, and then he evades. It's a little bit crazy because it looks like Spock has him and he's not able to hold him, and he fights him off, and Kirk goes after him too, but it's too late. He goes into the Guardian, goes into the device that sends him back to 1930s Earth, and immediately things change. And the way they change in Ellison's version is a little bit different than the aired episode. The crew members notice, or Kirk and Spock notice, that there's something going on with the ship, and the ship is still there, or a ship is still there, and they get beamed up, and what they encounter is it's not the Enterprise, it's another ship. I think they call it the Condor. It's taken over. It's completely taken over by renegade. I guess the best way I could say, space pirates, renegades. And as soon as they see them, they attack Kirk, Spock, and everybody else in the transporter room. They're able to fight off the renegades that are there and lock themselves in the transporter room. And then you realize, the Earth's history has completely been changed. And Kirk, again, he relies on Janice Rand in this way. He tells her Kirk and Spock must go back down to the planet and figure out how to fix this, while she needs to hold off these people so they don't come after them. And he even says to her, how long, she says you need to hold them off away from this, from the transporter. And she's like, how long? And he's like, how long? He asked her how long can she do it? And she's like, as long as it takes. So it's like, it really is a different portrayal of Janice Rand, which I like very much. And where we're always talking about having strong female characters and characters with more active roles, and the way Ellison does it from way back. I mean, this was written, 60 years ago. He does a good job having her be very active in this. So Kirk and Spock go back down. They go into they go through the device to back to where in the Earth's history where Beckwith has gone, and they basically have to try to figure out where he's going to be and where, because there's like the way the Guardians explain it to them, there's like a fulcrum, there's like a very important person that Beckwith interferes with that changes everything, and Kirk and Spock have to figure out who that is and stop it from happening. Pretty much the same thing with the aired episode, except in the episode when McCoy goes back in time, goes and changes history, everything is gone. Like there's no ship to go back to. It's almost like the Federation's completely gone. There's no ship to go back to. Everybody's stranded on there, and Kirk decides he's going to take Spock into the Guardian and go back to where McCoy went and stop whatever that he's going to do to change history, while Scotty and Uhura and all the rest stay behind. And there's this really weird, I didn't like this. There's a really weird line, not a weird line, just a line that I didn't like, where as soon as Uhura finds out what's going on, she's like, I'm scared. And she doesn't really evoke any emotion when she says that. It's more like she just says the line, I'm scared. And it's kind of weird that she would do that, because I don't know. Things haven't gotten, she is a Starfleet officer, but she just kind of says it without emotion. I kind of didn't like it, but that's no big deal. I did want to say that I think one of the big, not controversies, but one of the big objections that Roddenberry had was that there's an actual Starfleet officer that was doing illicit things, like dealing with drugs and stuff like that, and doing something wrong, morally wrong. You know what? I didn't think that was a big deal, because Ellison made up a character to do that. Okay, he's not like he's using one of the main characters that was turning that way. He made up a whole new character that did that. So I didn't think that was far fetched. I mean, we've seen other examples of Starfleet officers gone bad, like Captain Ron Tracy, who basically throws away the Prime Directive by phasering whole bunch of the population on the planet he's on, and Ben Finney fakes his own death to try to get Captain Kirk court-martialed. I'm sure there's a lot of other cases. Definitely, I can think of more in Deep Space Nine and with the security officer, I'm trying to think of his name, goes and joins the Maquis, and I'm sure there's a lot of situations in Star Trek Next Generation of certain Starfleet officers gone bad. So that's not a big deal. And again, Ellison did make up a character to do this. He's not using one of the regular crew members. On the other hand, I do like that the episode somehow crafted a story to get McCoy involved into it, as opposed to just some unknown character, because one of the best things about the original series is that dynamic between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. So that is a great idea that they were able to get him in there as part of the story. So good. There's good things about both versions. So pretty much a lot of it is very similar from then on in. Kirk and Spock, Ellison has them, find a place to live, and the one great thing about what they did in the comic is this, like, the exact replica of the clothes that Kirk and Spock were changed into back when they're in the 1930s Earth is exactly the same thing. They took it right out of the episode. There's a lot of Easter eggs in these comics. I definitely recommend people, regardless of what the story they like better, to read the comic books, because there's a lot of Easter eggs in there with Harlan Ellison. There's like a panel which says Ellison's Theater in the background. There's also like an alley which Kirk and Spock run into because they're trying to get away from people. And you see this playbill from a theater, and it's called and it's like I guess the feature is I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which is one of Ellison's most famous short stories. I'm sure there's a lot more that I probably have to go back and I missed. So there's a lot of that's thrown in there. That's kind of cool. So in Ellison's version, they are able to actually locate Beckwith at one point, and again, it was kind of weird because Spock has him, and he's able to get away from Spock, and he takes Spock's phaser even with him away from him, and that's kind of weird because they have him, and then they get away, and then they have to try to figure out where it is that he's going to affect the time, and of course it's Edith Keeler who they meet, and Captain Kirk actually falls in love with. In Ellison's version, it goes a lot more into where there's like this really there's private conversation. There's conversation between Kirk and Spock where Kirk actually expresses to him that he really does love her, and even when in the scenes with him and her when they go out on like a date, there's a point at which he tells her that he loves her, and she tells him that, and why wouldn't he? She's such a great character, played wonderfully by is it Joan Collins, I believe, and she's very intelligent, and she's just so forward thinking, and that's the whole point. That the problem with it is that she if she hadn't died because of her forward thinking about things about concept about peace resulted in the United States not entering World War II early enough to stop Germany, and Germany kind of takes over, and that's how everything's changed. So there's at a certain point where she is gonna die from a fatal accident, and that's something that both McCoy in the episode and Beckwith changed that, and that's how things get changed. That's how the whole Earth history gets changed. So Kirk and Spock have to stop that. So one of the ways, I want to also point out that the way Ellison, or at least the way the comic book portrays her, is I'm assuming they get this description from Ellison. Edith Keeler is dressed in like this blue mantle, and she has like this brooch, like that kind of, let's clasp that at the coat that she's wearing, this blue coat. It's like the sun, and that's kind of like one of the clues that the Guardian of Forever gave them as a way to look out for, to find that person, that fulcrum that needs to, that is the whole point of this. And I thought it was kind of curious because a lot of times Mary, the mother of Jesus, is portrayed that way, like where she appears in like kind of like a blue type of mantle, and then there's a line in the Bible that says, you know, she's clothed with the sun. And it was kind of, as soon as I saw the way she was drawn, I thought of that. But obviously, it probably just a coincidence, because I'm not exactly sure, but I think Harlan Ellison is atheist, so I don't think that there would be that connection. But that's the connection I made. That is, she was that type of character. So. Both versions of the story here, we have the problem is that Kirk falls in love with this person, and she becomes very important to him, and she doesn't want, and Spock is telling him, look, she has to die. There's some, at some point she's gonna, they don't know for sure what's gonna happen, but at some point there's gonna be an accident where she dies, and that's how, and it has to happen. And Kirk is very conflicted with that. Obviously, because he cares deeply about. She's not one of just kind of like these girls that he kind of like just goes out, you know, has a fling or anything like that. He's deeply in love with her, as Ellison portrays him, their relationship, and it's also seen that in the episode to a point too. So that's a big conflict that's gonna happen. So they figure out what's gonna somehow. In the episode that McCoy is going to stop that, and in Ellison version, Beckwith is going to stop that. I'm not sure what it was like a little bit crazy about Ellison version. Is like, I'm not sure what the motivation is, like where he's actually very selfish throughout the whole thing, but then he's going to save her life. So that's kind of one of those things where, you know, in humanity, people, even bad people, have redeeming qualities. So they get to the point where. At the end of the story and at the end of the episode, Beckwith shows up. Beckwith shows up right when Edith is crossing the road to meet up with Kirk and Spock. She sees Kirk. He actually, once he realizes that she's destined to die, he's actually telling her, stay in your apartments. Just wait till we take care of this. And what he's thinking of, he's actually thinking he's gonna stop Beckwith from interfering with the whole thing, but he wants her safe regardless. He doesn't want the accident to happen to her. So, but she comes out looking for him. She sees him across the street, starts crossing the road. Beckwith shows up and is intent on just from this oncoming truck that's coming right at her. And Kirk is just caught in this indecision. He does not want to. He does not want to stop Beckwith. He actually doesn't go and move towards saving her either. But he doesn't want to stop Beckwith from saving her. And he's just caught in indecision. And this is I'm thinking this is kind of like the major flaw in Ellison's version of the story. One of the major flaws is that the character of Kirk. That's not the character of Kirk. The fact that he's kind of like goes into this indecision type thing. No, he does not do that. Yes, he does care deeply about this person. He may even love her, but in the end, he's not going to sacrifice the whole universe. He's not going to sacrifice what's going on, with the Federation. All his crew members that are now lost. He's not going to do that, but. In Ellison's version, he is unable to stop Beckwith from saving Edith Keeler, and so it's up to Spock that goes into action, and he goes and stops Beckwith. Edith Keeler gets hit by the truck and she dies, and then things get restored. And I don't. That's the one thing I don't like about it. I don't think that finally in the end that Kirk would actually risk that. That's his character, and that moment of indecision. I don't think that's really hit him. But that's the way it is. That was the way he wrote it. It's the end result's still the same. So in the episode, they're able to find, Spock is able to put together some using the parts from the tricorder, and is able to put together the fact that Edith Keeler is going to die, and she has to die because that's going to make all the changes. They see Spock. They finally see McCoy, and they're like happy to see him because McCoy's all over the drugs. He's now back to normal. They see McCoy, and then across the street, as in the other, as Ellison's story, Edith Keeler starts crossing the road. They all see the truck coming. McCoy wants to go after to save her, which is what they all should be doing. But in a normal circumstance, that's your instinct. And then Kirk stops him, in effect, saving everybody because he knows that Edith Keeler must die. And I think that makes more sense, that in the end Kirk would make that decision. And of course it kills him, not kills him literally, but it just emotionally, it's just like one of the worst things that could happen to him. And then they come back, and obviously he's very sad that she had to die in order to restore everything, and everything's back to normal. Just one line in Ellison's version, actually they come back with Beckwith, but then somehow he gets away from them again, and he goes back into the machine, in the time machine. But this time around, the Guardians are prepared. They're not letting him go back into the past to change anything. He actually, the way Ellison describes it, they actually goes into this, basically goes into the machine and goes into a supernova, like a point where a star is going supernova, and he is like inside of it, like burning. And he said his punishment is that he's going to relive that over and over and over again, that pain and that like shock, and that going through that over and over again, going through the fact that the star is going supernova, and he's like in it, like burning. It's kind of crazy, but it's a punishment that he gets. And there you have it. I'm sure I missed a lot of things. Please let me know in the comments, if you like one or the other better. In the end, I do like the way the episode aired better. I've already mentioned that they somehow got McCoy into it with the story, which was not in Ellison's version. And the fact that at the end, the Kirk makes the right decision, that I didn't agree with Ellison's version. But there are some really good points from Ellison's version. Like I said before, I do like that Yeoman Janice Rand has a more active role, and in the end, whatever one you like best, the fact remains that what's undeniable is that this episode wouldn't have been aired. We wouldn't all have enjoyed this episode and talk about it without Ellison coming up with the story. He came up with that story. Okay, so that there would be no City on the Edge of Forever Star Trek episode without Ellison, because he came up with the original story. However, you think that his version is not better than what was aired, okay, that's fine. But without him as the original creator, there would be no City on the Edge of Forever, and I give him a lot of credit for that, for coming up with that story. And in general, this is one of the things I always am a proponent for, the original creators of whatever you want to call, whether it's J.R.R. Tolkien with Lord of the Rings, or Frank Herbert's Dune, Robert Ludlum's Bourne Identity, whatever people do. And this is like one of the more popular things that people do now with film. They don't come up with their own original stories. They like to take classic stories and put their own little thing into it, make their version of it. Well, however people like to do that, they need to know that without the original creator, there is no story that they can manipulate or think that they're going to make it. It's never better. Whatever the original of all those classes are always better. You can argue about this one in terms of like, I still think that the episode is better, but again, I give Ellison a lot of credit for actually coming up with the story. So, and I'm always going to side on the the original creator as a person who. This is different because Ellison is writing characters that were already created, but when an original writer comes up with a story and he makes up his own characters and they become classic characters, I'm always going to side on the original creator for that, because he's the one who created that. He or she is the one who created those characters, and they know best what those characters are. So people later on that may want to change them, well, they're going to always be on the wrong side, because no, those characters don't exist without the original creator. So I'm always going to side on that. Obviously, this is a little bit different because Ellison was hired to write for established characters in an established universe. But my opinion is that the aired episode that we has now become part of Star Trek forever is better than the original story. But I do give Ellison a lot of credit for coming up with the story. All right, that's it for me. Please leave me a comment on what you think, which version you like better. What did I miss? I know I missed a lot of stuff. This was just kind of like off the top of my head. I know I missed a lot of differences and other Easter eggs that were in Ellison's version, more interesting concepts. Let me know. And that's it for me for now, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching Geek Time TV. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, make sure to check the little bell icon anytime someone from our network drops new content here. Want some Geek Time swag? Check out the merchandise available in the Geek Time TV store, linked in the channel description below. Share Geek Time TV with friends, and as always, thank you for your support. We'll see you soon.